Thank you for joining us for the Into Me I See podcast, brought to you by RPI Consultants. I am your host, Justin Braun. This is the podcast where we connect to answer a simple and compelling question. How can we work to improve professional health, performance, vitality, and outcomes by focusing on the quality of our relationships? Becka Melisi is the admissions lead at a really cool organization called the Flow Genome Project. She studied psychology in the early 2000s at Purdue University, go Boilermakers, focused on consumer family science. She's a free spirit and a serial entrepreneur, founding Golden Ratio Tats in 2017, in part because she never wanted to miss another main stage event at Burning Man ever again. Becka is going to talk to us today about leveling up, the power of mentor relationships. Becca's at an inflection point in her professional development, where she is cognizant and grateful for the great mentor relationships that have shaped her life, while also stepping into the role of being a mentor to others. Welcome to the show, Becka.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really glad we're making this project happen. As you know, we start with the art, and we have a camera feed here. But please use your words to just describe your very unique inspiration that kind of grounds down what you intend to talk about today. What's your reflection or your inspiration for being here today?
I tend to want to take a creative approach to everything that matters. And I draw inspiration from sort of spatial models. Most specifically the notion of the mandala, that which has concentric spheres or circles, and that which has radial symmetry, appeals to me a lot because I find that the structure of it inspires how I map information and how I ground and keep knowledge. And in order to afford anyone else the knowledge that I have, I need to ground it and keep it. I need to be the steward of it. And so I love that art is a carrier for knowledge, and in culture at a larger scale, that's true as well. And so I just kind of like the microcosm of it in my life.
I love it. I love the interplay of the different circles, the relationships of different spheres of influence in our life. I like you're talking about the art of relationship. And we're going to get into the way you express yourself in things that matter, where your creative aspects shine, curated spaces. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Maybe the place to start, Becca, is where we met. We met because I had followed the clicks to apply for a really cool training called Leading Through Fire, which is offered by the Flow Genome Project, which is a super cool, very cutting edge, very inspirational group out there. Jamie Wheel. Yeah. So I met you because you were interviewing me as a candidate for that program. It's a course in leadership offered by the Flow Genome Project. So first of all, for those that aren't tuned in on all the amazing work that you and Jamie and the team are doing, what is the Flow Genome Project?
I like to think of us as a training ground for next level consciousness, an approach to self, relationship, and culture that is very robust. So the materials that we teach across multiple programs, you can think of us as being a place where you can have a compressed timeline of transformation. So a lot of people are out there seeking different knowledge from different domains and gathering it and putting it all together. And what I really appreciate about Jamie's life's work is that he's done a lot of that himself, and he's harvested some of the highest leverage information from across multiple domains and has been able to elegantly synthesize it together into one place so that folks can come in and get the best of everything. It's that Pareto's law. So this is the 20% of the tools that cover 80% of your ass and get you into a state of integration and wisdom that helps you answer the call of, like, I'm doing the hard thing for Team Human. So if we can get folks on a different velocity and trajectory in less time, then ideally it affords not just them their own transformation, but then they get to they get to deliver on their gifts, and others get to be the beneficiaries of that progress in their lives. So we like to see kind of 1,000 fires lit by training folks, and then they go back into their spheres of influence and make a big splash and feel like they are doing a meaningful thing.
That is meaningful, and I appreciate that. And I'm doing my best to stoke the fires over here at RPI now that I've been trained in leading through fire by both Jamie and Kurt, Navy SEAL Team 6 commander. So really cool organization. Second follow-up question, since you are really kind of the gauntlet through which all candidates must go, like you have a very unique and cool protective role of your organization that you're clearly really passionate about. Why do you take such care in qualifying the candidates for your program?
That's a great question. So I'm actually glad to say that there are more team members who have taken on the role that we've brought on. And so there are more human beings as stewards of the space and vetting folks on the way in. But I'd say the most important reason is to make sure that the folks that do bow in are prepared to play authentically all the way through in order to also discover what matters to folks. So if we're having hundreds of conversations about what puts wind in people's sails and what anchors they're dragging behind, then we can take the pattern language of all of that emerges and to make sure that we're still serving up the most helpful tools into our student community, the people who are gathering around our signal. And also because, you know, if you bow into a dojo and you're willing to play authentically, then you're potentially going to expose yourself and your foibles and the things that will help others learn from you. So it needs to be a safe place for that to take place. So we just drop in what matters to you, what's in the way, how can we help you get there in less time with less collateral damage, and will you play full out? And you know, maybe you'll even come back. So.
Well, it certainly worked for me. My first experience was probably 5 years ago. I did the 6-week Fundamentals of Flow, which was really cool, kind of right out of the box. I had read The Rise of Superman, the book Jamie wrote with Steven. And yeah, that was, I had a friend that was kind of in my cohort and we went through it together, and some really simple stuff like drinking a glass of water every day and being cognizant about when your flow cycles peak and making that, you know, the time of day that you allocate towards your hardest task. And that helped. And then 4 years later, I did come back, and really glad that I made it through the gauntlet. I heard you share, Becca, that you're looking for sort of like an altruistic energy signature. You don't want to give these power tools to the wrong people. I appreciate that. And I can say it's working because I was part of about an 80-person course that went through leading through fire. And there were, I guess, 10 8-person boat teams as well. And I got to know most of the members of that group. And there was resonance around that signal that you said of not only making the world a better place, but doing so by making ourselves better people. And yeah, it's working. So whatever you're doing.
Like we put out a pretty clean signal, and the folks that gather around it tend to have some things in common. I think I might have had like 3,500 or 4,000 conversations by now in the past 4.5-ish years. And it's unanimous. People are curious, they're generous, and they're ambitious. And it is contagious inside of the container. You know, we're about to challenge our big assumptions and address our glitchy code and take on some disruptive education, and inside of a container with other movers and shakers and people who are motivated to do that and ready to kind of break frame and try on new lenses. It ends up being, the challenge of it ends up being even more rewarded by virtue of the caliber of the people who are inside the cohorts.
Full on. That's what it is. That's what justified the investment for me. It wasn't just the content's amazing, but you can get content in a book or a YouTube channel. What I was most stoked about was the relationships that formed through that process and being part of a community that continues on after that course. And I don't want to give too much away about LTF and all the other great courses you guys offer, but thanks for sharing a little bit about that.
Sure.
I was absolutely led to the FGP because I identify with the pursuit of optimal performance and psychology, not just in theory, but in action, right? Like you guys seem to have experiential learning kind of dialed in. And I plan to keep coming back. And Becca, you're a successful entrepreneur, which you started by essentially running a physician's property management and patient care business, which is very entrepreneurial work with the added benefit of all being with someone else's capital. And then in 2017, you went all in with GRT. Tell us about that journey and that creative expression for you.
Yes. So I was a big fish in a tiny pond for about a decade, running Dr. Selner's multiple businesses across hospitality, podiatry, and human performance, kind of like biomechanics lab stuff, and even a product launch of his in orthotics. So I had such a wide variety of experiences, and he kind of groomed me to be gutsy. And I was able to transfer that into an endeavor of my own, mostly because I was forced to. I was pursuing a love relationship that had me let go of that role and kind of, which was cushy. It wasn't cushy financially, like I made ends meet, but it was cushy because I had autonomy and mastery and purpose, and I was intrinsically motivated, and I was important, and we were friends. And but I had to pursue love. So I moved out of that job and traveled the globe to pursue a romantic relationship, which landed me in Australia, where I was not permitted to work. And I decided I need to launch a physical products business on the Amazon marketplace in order to eat while I'm here. And I thought, I'm going to do an experimental one first before I go all in on something that requires more capital. So I thought GRT, Golden Ratio Tats, was actually going to be like a rough draft at trying entrepreneurship. But it was profitable right away because of a number of factors. Like, I belong to the demographic that it serves. It's a single-use product, so I'm basically buying new customers. It's under $50, so everyone can afford it. It packs flat and ships easily, so it doesn't take up warehouse space at Amazon. And it's delightfully beautiful. Like, when you put it on, people change, they shift, they feel different. The moment that, if I'm giving someone a makeover and then I turn the mirror around to see what I've done, the moment that they see it and the way that their face lights up and the way that then they go about their dance floor experience, it's magnificent. And I've experienced the same thing. So that was the ethos of it. Like, what I wanted to do was create an expression of the deeper self that can be recognized on the surface as fantastic and even maybe regal, or I mean, they're gold and they're glittery and they're tribal and they're just phenomenal, and I feel so confident when I wear them. So I get to give the gift of that magical confidence, and the business has been going ever since, and it's been challenging me in different ways that I didn't expect. That's for sure.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. So I'm picturing, like, you're at Burning Man, and maybe you're like putting that last brush on, and it's got to be just right because you want to get to the show. And then you sort of were able to lower the barrier to entry for that persona or beauty that you can take on by providing like a tattoo sticker, essentially, that creates that same experience, but makes it more portable and allows you to share that. Is that kind of what Golden Ratio Tats does?
I used to paint my face with acrylic paint, which when you go to take it off, it hurts. It's like crusty. It's not comfortable. You can't get, a whole hell of a lot of detail, and symmetry is just a pain in the butt to nail. So I decided I need something that goes on in 1/10 of the time with 10 times more detail, that solves the problem of symmetry. And it also releases me from having a line of people who are saying, paint my face next. So then I can just be like, I'm going to the headliner, you do you, here's a page. So I got to
very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that journey with us. So I mean, what was the doctor's name? The podiatrist? Dr.
Selner.
Dr. Selner.
Best in the world, bunion surgeon. He reinvented bunion surgery, man. Like, bunion surgery is kind of it's okay, the standard of bunion surgery from a mechanical standpoint, but learning what I learned about the way he approached it, he just revolutionized it, and his results were incredible. So I feel like I've always ever been associated with like the best of the best. Like, Dr. Selner was the best. Jamie is the best. Like, whatever. I just am.
I love that. I love that gift of fearlessness that Dr. Selner gave you. Do you feel that came out of the autonomy you had in that position, or what was the aspect of that mentor relationship that allowed your fearlessness to flourish. Is that what attracted, is that why he brought you on his team in the first place? Because he's like, oh, here's a fearless one. I mean, talk to me about that.
That would have been nice to know if that was the case. And I would have to ask him. I think that I came to him through a referral of a mutual friend. It was like, hey, she can organize your stuff. She's really pleasant to work with. You should have her do this gig. So he was just like, all right, give you a chance. Here's the key to the office. Go. And I was like, what do I do? And so I was definitely not fearless in the beginning. Like I got into that office for the first time and it was like a cartoon, you know, like I shrunk down to about 7 inches and there was a 62-story pile of paperwork and I was terrified of it and I didn't know what was what. I think it was in the process of just orienting to the territory of that and knowing that eventually I would integrate the knowledge and become the master of that domain. So he trusted me completely and he threw his hands in the air and was like, I don't want to deal with this, you deal with it. So I think it was his uninvolvement and like, you know, me being forged in the fire of figure it out that kind of gave me the fearlessness.
Thank you for validating that intuition. I was picking up like the autonomy was one of the way you described it, and that can be really terrifying. You know, but FITFO is the acronym we use around here for what you said, right? Figure it the F out.
Yeah.
And I love, like, again, we're talking about mentor relationships. And, you know, when I coach my 10 and 13-year-old hockey players, I tell the other coaches, be really careful what you expect of these players, because these players will rise to the level of your expectation. And it sounds like Dr. Selner had faith in you and put you in a position where you were able to recognize that and rise to that level.
Yeah, his faith in me definitely helped me to set a standard for myself.
Solid.
And I my actual appreciation for him, and I have like agape love for him, right? Like familial love for him. And he and I forged just an incredible relationship over those years. And so I wouldn't ever do wrong by him. You know, if I was capable of doing something and if I did something less than that, I think I would have noticed and held myself accountable to close that gap.
Beautiful. So Dr. Selner to Australia, golden ratio tats, that sounds like a really interesting pursuit. And now Flow Genome Project figured in there. Do you consider Jamie one of your mentors?
I consider Jamie to be I would say the foremost influence in my knowledge and integration. And, you know, I've borne witness to him doing what he does best for 5 years now. I've been steeped in it for about 7 years because I was tracking and mapping and following his stuff before that. And, you know, if you look at the piece of the pie of all of the teachers whose ingredients have come together to make this fabulous meal, I'd say Jamie is the main ingredient. Like he has so much of a multidisciplinary grasp on things, and the fragmentation that we see when we reach into a certain domain like cognitive science or optimal psychology, there's a lot of fragmentation there. And the way in which Jamie has influenced this, that's a massive level up, like an order of magnitude greater, is that he has an elegance of the way that all of that information is synthesized. Like the map is not two-dimensional, nor is it incomplete. It is robust and it's like a 3D hyperobject. And all of these pieces and domains have relationship to one another. And the way in which it's taught and the way in which it's integrated in an embodied way really helps you kind of click out and see, like an operating system to a user interface. You can see what applications there are, and you can decide what to put in play and how to match yourself to the task at hand in your state. And it's the most disruptive education I've ever gotten. I mean, having a formal education from Purdue, it like sounds nice on paper. Purdue's an awesome university, and I had a fabulous time there. But this, it puts my college education in its shadow, like by a huge margin, like a titan. The education I've gotten from Jamie and here in Flow Genome Project.
That's very cool to hear. I'm picking up a strong signal of integration, kind of like, you know, we're talking about these mandalas, and you've really gone out there in the world and cultivated a holistic sort of constellation of insights, in vocation and avocation. Can you share how this attitude has grown based on input from your mentors?
Oh, absolutely. So I would have to say that any addition to the full picture by any one teacher or mentor adds to it more than the sum of its parts. It really has an emergent quality to it. And I'd say pattern recognition is kind of at the helm here. Developing pattern recognition and being able to see how the different works of different teachers and contributors, how they overlay and how they're in relationship to one another. And I'm going to lay some names out here. Forrest Landry, who is one of my dearest friends and mentors, is a polymath of the highest order and an expert in so many domains, has written the most complete manuscript on metaphysics that one can ever collide with. Sarah Marshank, who is a wise woman and has gone through an incredible life journey through various lineage practices, contemplation, the Hebraic tradition, and just gaining wisdom through life, has a framework that she calls selfistry, like the artistry of being self. The two of their work mirrors one another. If you look at it as an architecture of intel, it's the same. And bringing them together and bringing their work together, one helps me understand the other. Forrest's work helps me understand Jamie's work. And John Vervaeke, who I've not actually met personally, but he is an avid contributor to cognitive psychology, optimal psychology, and various other like meditative and personal developmental areas. His publications and his work has shined so much light on the big picture. So I love to see the patterns emerging across the teachers. And that really affords me so much integration. It affords me the ability to recognize when a dynamic is in play and say, I've seen this before. And I know what tool lives here now, or I know how I can break frame and think about this. Or most importantly, I know what questions I should be asking myself or this other person right now. It's so much all about the questions, and bringing the right inquiry to bear is key. And these teachers have so many of the greatest questions that they've brought online for me. And they just keep coming back and they just keep bearing fruit.
So through the value, you're extracting and extrapolating meaning, and from the meaning, you're finding purpose, is what I'm hearing you share.
Yes, right. The relationship between value, meaning, and purpose. Yes. If you can identify what you value, which is inherent, it's transcendent, then you can decide, how do I take action on behalf of this thing that I value? I value the natural world. I value alleviating suffering. I value getting into my body. I value creative expression. I value deepening mythos and culture. I value connection. Okay, what action can I take on behalf of several of these values stacked on top of one another? And as you're enacting that in the body, in the moment, imminently, you experience meaning. And sometimes it's going to be a struggle, and sometimes it's going to be a celebration. But either way, it's meaningful because you're taking action on behalf of your values. And if you can look back on moment after moment after moment where you wake up to that in your body and you experience meaning, then that's the nectar. That's the nectar in your life. You don't even have to worry about purpose. Purpose comes later when you step back and you look at it like an art piece. It's omniscient. It's the outside looking in. And it's like, oh, the purpose of that was to bring some people together in the community and let them learn how to grow their own food. Or, the purpose of that was to reunite some people who had, previous friction in their bond or whatever, So purpose, I think, comes last, which is counterintuitive to a lot of the hype around purpose in our culture.
Well said. You just totally nailed that. Shout out to Forrest.
Shout out to Forrest.
The action is the word that comes up again. Experiential learning, right? You're not just attending a lecture with this community that you're a part of. You're really experiencing it in community with others. It's kind of, in a way, it's happening right now, right? So you've taken the action to integrate these teachings. You attribute this growth to the quality of various mentor relationships. Again, as you were talking, I was seeing those mandalas kind of come through your energy. But that's where I want to dig in, right? Is like, okay, how do you measure the quality of a mentor? How do you know when you're working with someone that you can trust to shape your heart?
I love that you said trust, because that comes to mind immediately. I'm a mammal, so I will interact with my immediate environment and anyone in it on the basis of how well I can predict my safety. So I'm not going to lean forward until I know I'm safe enough to do so. And I'm not going to experience wonder until there's an input that, piques my curiosity. So I think a good mentor first makes you feel safe and then piques your curiosity. But an amazing mentor will balance the idea of, understanding and seeing you deeply and completely. Like, I know that they're not missing what I'm putting down. And then what they offer you affords you greater agency. They don't hand it all over and do it for you. They don't tell you the answers. They bring you through a Socratic dialogue and a process of deepening inquiry. And they with you explore the territory. And on the other side of that, you feel like you've got better navigation skills. So that you feel like, I don't need a map to everything that lies ahead so that I can predict it and control it. I need to know that I have feet that will operate on any terrain, and whatever comes ahead, I got it. So it's that adaptability and that navigational skill set as a virtue that they help you to integrate. And I think inquiry is one of the best ways to do that.
Yes.
Rather, definitely share resources, definitely share frameworks. Those tools are amazing because those tools give you better agility. But really deepening inquiry, I think, is one of the greatest nutrients that an excellent mentor can bring to bear.
So well said. Again, I'm sort of picturing what we learned in LTF with that Cartman drama triangle, and the mentor sort of just naturally, wholly occupying that growth edge from the rescuer to the coach, right? And coming with questions.
Yeah.
And through that, helping transform a victim into a self-author, or a persecutor into a challenger. A lot of the same conversations include the same content, but the energy signature is different. And I think the mentor holds a special place in that. I've seen the rescuer at work, and they're not building future leaders, because they're just handing out fish, right?
And they undermine your agency. The economy between challenge and support is where the magic is, and where another person will come out stronger than you.
Accommodation weakens resolve, I think, is how Kurt put it. Like,
I love it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to quote the guys, but just trying to share how much that course impacted on me. And
I love that. Please keep going.
Yeah, you guys are passionate about that. I know. I can't wait to share this with those guys, actually. Thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah. I learn something new every time I participate in that, So it used to be called Flow for Leaders, and then we leveled it up when, our culture ran into a roadblock together, and we brought on Kurt, and we leveled up the content, and we really put it in a greater context of a volatile world. So we're not just making optimized fair weather leaders, not even making optimized fair weather leaders who are on a dharmic path, right? Because if you isolate that and you say, like, come over here and we'll optimize you, that's nice, but you just maximize widgets on someone else's agenda. There's no guarantee of fulfillment. So we also bring in an element of, are you on a path of full expression? Are you on a path of post-tragic integration? Can you hold a greater humanness? Can you operate in it without wanting to eliminate parts of it? And then also, what's your long game, and on behalf of whom? So that people look back on their optimization as in service to something meaningful to them. But even that doesn't necessarily put it in the container, here we are again in concentric circles, of the VUCA conditions of the world. VUCA standing for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So we need to make leaders who are not just fair weather leaders, but rather leaders who can be in the washing machine without collapsing under the weight of that evolutionary pressure, but rather responding with strength and resilience and anti-fragility to the weight of the evolutionary pressure, kind of like a muscle getting stronger under force.
And you look for that. You look for that level of altruism in your candidates, right? Because the trust equation's got credibility, reliability, and intimacy on the top. But
Yeah.
all those top scores can be decimated by the denominator, which is coming from a place of self-interest, right?
Yeah.
So again, back to that omniscience or that purpose, which I've heard purpose described as like passion plus perseverance. And
yeah.
And you said, what's your long game and on behalf of whom?
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
nails that. So.
And when someone comes from, like, it is important for someone to be self-fulfilling, so that you bring wholeness into everything that is layered around that concentrically. But if you are taking from the whole in order to deliver to yourself in a finite pool, then you're playing a zero-sum game, and that's not trustworthy. Inherently, it's not. But when you fill yourself up completely and bring that into the whole so that the whole may benefit and there is a net gain in the system, very different thing.
Yeah, that's the jam. That's when it happens. It was taught to me in, my consulting initial foray back in the late 90s was, look for the 3 C's, look for the situation that benefits the client, the company, and the colleague. So it's not a zero-sum game, so that you are actually on an infinite path where the thing that benefits the individual also benefits the collective, extending that collective all the way to the client's door and really delivering value all the way around. When you find that win-win-win, it's like, go, go, go. There's no question at that point. So
yeah. And conversely, it's important to notice that, like, if one neglects oneself, especially at the layer of their vitality, then they bring that emptiness into their psychology, into their philosophy, and then their personhood is less stable and is more of a liability. Even if you bring that into interpersonal relationships, that's also less trustworthy. So there is kind of a responsibility that we carry in terms of fortifying ourselves and ensuring to our wholeness and our vitality that is the thing that radiates into the collective. If I constantly overtax myself and allow myself to succumb to burnout, then I'm not really delivering on my gifts. And so I need to resume a self-orientation enough to make myself whole so that I can bring wholeness into the initiatives that I'm a part of. So yeah, doing the collective justice means to fortify yourself first and foremost, because it's at the center of the mandala.
You are. Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. And especially the body. I mean, your vitality is such a complex and incredible art piece. And the state of your guts, everything from how well rested and hydrated you are to the stability of your blood sugar to, the structure and how you're allowing air to flow into your body and be exchanged, and how much blood flow is getting to your brain. Are you hunched over and collapsed? Are you carrying agita and stiffness? Doing the work on the body will give your proprioceptive, data set a much better profile, and that ricochets into the parts of your brain that inform your conscious and unconscious being, whether or not you should lean in or be frozen or cowering in the corner in the fetal position, or even the parts of your brain that will help you abstract possible realities that feeds into your decision making. And it tells you how much resource you have access to do the thing that you're confronted with. So tending to your vitality is so critical. And if you have gotten your yayas out and you have a systematic approach to digesting grief, which is something that a good mentor will ideally help you see, then you can bring a relaxed nervous system and a lot more resources to the things you're trying to do in the world, and you'll have much better outcomes.
I think what I heard you share there towards the end there, Becca, is that what you get from a good mentor relationship, when you're working with someone that you can trust, or when that you're capable of mentoring another, is when you're able to help them develop self-awareness. That kind of happens, kind of a gift through that trust.
Yes. As far as my approach to mentorship, I'm tracking all of those layers for the people that I'm working with. I want to make sure that I'm not ignoring any of the important knobs and levers of their vitality. I'm also helping to see what are the frames that are in play and the code that they're running in their, psychological software. Whose voice is that? Did that come from your early childhood stories? Did this come from our greater culture? Does that still serve? Can we challenge that? What would happen if we play that through? And then also like, hey, where are you in terms of the long game? Where are you on a greater trajectory of the greatest meaningful liftoff and journey that you could lead in this lifetime? What do you want to look back on? Are we even oriented in the direction of the thing that matters most to you? Are we wrapped around the axles of something here and now that we could digest in order to reorient and get towards that long game? And that's just at the layer of someone's personhood. Those are the 3 layers that I'm tracking. And then we go out into the interpersonal relationships. How is your relationship to someone you may be romantically or dyadically in love with, or in loving relationship with, or collaborators on a business project, or parents, siblings, children? How do we show up in those relationships? What is the code that we're running there? Does that software need an update too? What should I be asking myself in order to put back on the edges there? And then it's, who am I in the long run, and what am I going to want to be so proud to contribute to in this lifetime? What would if I were to plant the seeds of something and see to it that it's nurtured and grown, and then step away from it completely and watch it continue as I go and as I am gone, what would I have want to planted? So I like to help, and oftentimes if we're stuck in the body and in the guts and a lot of agita, then that's where we're working first, because we're not going to get to the greatest vision of the blueprint of what you want to plant in the world if we haven't been able to systematically digest our grief in the body.
That's the gift of that selflessness, that sort of hallmark of a flow state, is getting out of our own selves. And I mean, even the practice of yoga was invented to quiet the body and clear that path so that you can access the divine through meditation or whatever. Very cool.
One of my mentors, Sarah and I work together across multiple things. One is that I am a student of her framework. Another is that she's helping to groom me as a mentor. Intellectually and emotionally, and basically I want to be like her, right? So just the time that we spend playing and having fun and breaking bread, I'm soaking her up like a sponge, because she's just so magnificent in her wisdom and in her affect and in her expression of her authentic self. So I get to learn mentorship from her even as I watch her play. But recently, actually not even that recently, it was April of last year, we were on retreat at one of her programs, and I asked her, like, what makes a good mentor? If I'm tracking these things, then I'd be a good mentor. What are these things? And she listed 3 pieces that have really stuck with me and that I've handed out to lots of people since then in conversation. And one is that you need to genuinely care about the person you're serving. So it can't be on the basis of transactions. So while it's perfectly appropriate to be supported by a client or to have financial remuneration from a relationship, the core need there is a human connection that matters to you. The second piece is that one needs to, as a mentor, be on a path of their own growth and transformation. So you can't yourself be sitting stagnant, not practicing what you preach. One needs to be in practice and be oriented towards growth and on a path. And the specific thing that she shared here, which I thought was really beautiful, that unlocked me, was you don't need to be in a position farther along than anyone that you serve. You can literally just be oriented and in momentum. And if you were to limit yourself to only mentoring or advocating for or inquiring with folks who are a few steps behind, then you're holding back your gifts and a lot of people who would otherwise benefit and don't get to. So just release that. You don't need to be in a relative position to anyone. You just need to care. You need to be on a path of your own. And the third thing that she said was you need to actually have skill in inquiry. Like you do need mapping, tracking, synthesis, and inquiry. So that's the part that I really strive to cultivate.
So you're working to cultivate that third aspect of skillful inquiry.
Yeah.
Am I hearing that correctly? Talk more about that. What are some of the practices that you've plugged in earlier?
So that layer cake, that mandala of systematic approach to the whole human, from the vitality to the psychology to the philosophy, the interpersonal, then the initiatives, then the outside world. I'd say having an architecture or a framework that affords you a place to set your tools and a place to locate your inquiries, that helps tremendously. So having a superstructure to look at, that, that gives you a bigger picture organizational standard. And then you know where the gaps are, where the holes are that need to be attended. And you can see kind of like if you were to approach your health, you go to a doctor and you're like, I'm not quite well. The doctor would be like, all right, we're going to take some tests and we're going to check you out. And they're looking for deficiencies and toxicities. What is deficient here? What nutrients need to be in place that are not quite there at the appropriate levels or are absent completely? And let's bring those on. And what toxicities are here? So what is out of balance or overclocked or just plain shouldn't be here that we should eliminate or move out of the way?
So if I'm hearing you right, Becka, what puts the skillful inquiry is the ability to sort of pull the answers you're getting back into some kind of framework that embodies a larger belief system about those connections. Am I getting that?
Yes. And, it's almost counterintuitive too, because a good mentor would advise you, hey, loosen your grip on the map. Get into the territory and feel into what's going on here too. So it's an economy of that even still. I love to have frameworks. They help me to ask questions, help me to organize kind of like a checklist of what would I need to know to serve this situation properly. And that gives me the list of questions that I should be asking. And from those, we gather enough data to make that affords us a lot more of a gain. Like it affords us more agility, it affords us more transformation. But still, clinging to a framework is not a great idea either. Just having an openness to it as well.
Yeah, you can't paint by numbers in this game, right? This is the art of relationship we're talking about.
Totally. There's nothing more complex than another human being.
Oh, wow. All right, so let's bring it home. As you know, we're going to end with a song that you get to bring to our audience, to the Into Me I See playlist as an outro. But I'm just curious if I could invite you. There's so much coherence across all the different places and spaces that you've been in. All these points of intersection, all these circles on the mandala. Where's the intersection for you? Can you help us try to point or connect the points of intersection that are present across all of your life's work so far?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, and if you ask me, like, what do you do or what do you want to do? And people are like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm just like, ugh. I get nervous about that. Even though I feel good in every day. It's not that I don't feel struggle in each day too, but I feel the goodness in every day and I feel like I'm going to be fine. I get a little bit vague when it comes to that answer. What path am I on, or what is the intersection of the virtues that I prioritize? But I would say the through line and the golden thread is that I want to live at the intersection of curated space, experience, stewarded knowledge, and human connection. I want to bring those together in 1,000 different ways over the years, whether it's a dinner party or a prom redemption theme party or a deep, ceremonious drop-in with inner circle people. Whatever it is, I think that it will have an element of curation or creativity and connection. It feeds me, it feeds everyone involved, and everyone wins. Even if it's a struggle, it's still a celebration.
Well, you've definitely brought that intersection to us today, Becka. Thank you so much for the images, the words, the symbols, and all the points of human connection that you covered today. I think you did a really great job. I'm really, really happy to have you on the show. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Would you like to take us out with a song?
Well, let's see. How would I do that?
Well, you just name the title. Name the title and the artist, but most
Absolutely,
importantly,
I have one.
most importantly, just tell us why that song speaks to you.
There's a song called Wandering Sadhu by it's by Desert Dwellers. And wouldn't you know, on the cover of that song, there's a mandala. But that's not why. It's just so, it's got deep, uplifting bass lines. It's got amazing instruments, and it's got a vocal sort of tribal ritual sound to it. And the feeling that it evokes is exactly the feeling of dropping in with your inner circle around a fire, doing the thing that we are most deeply programmed to do. I would say if we can gather under the open sky and dance to a shared rhythm, there's a feeling, and this is an ecstasis, a catharsis, and a communitas, which is something that Jamie teaches all at once in the same place. And Wandering Sadhu brings me there every time.
Bang.
And I bought a wearable bass vest that has like bass pucks on it. And I cranked that song up last night. And yeah, that song, it does the thing.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't realize that wearable bass vests were a thing, but I'm now deeply intrigued and think I might need to get one.
Do it. Woojer, Woojer. Just don't expect them to deliver it to you in under a month.
Takes a little while with
great anticipation, and when it arrives, it'll blow your mind.
Becka, thank you so much for your contribution today. Great job. Really grateful. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I suspect that the way you go about mentoring and be mentored, just like any art, will evolve over time, and really excited to see where you and the Flow Genome Project goes from here.
Thanks so much. This has been wonderful. Have a great day.
You too.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to the whole episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks goes out to RPI's amazing marketing team, Michaela, Logan, Chris, Paul, and others to come for collaborating on this project and connecting it to the RPI experience. If you think you might want to come work for RPI or let RPI come work for you, you can find us at rpic.com. That's Roger Peter Indigo Charlie.com. If you want to learn more about this show, watch past episodes, or sign up to be a guest, just add /IntoMeIC to that rpic.com URL. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it real, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. Thank you very much.